The series takes place primarily in an unnamed city in the United States. Flashbacks from Saw 4 reveal the roots of the series, presenting John Kramer as a successful civil engineer and devoted husband to his wife Jill Tuck, who opened a rehab clinic for drug addicts. Jill lost her unborn baby, Gideon, due to the unwitting actions of a drug addict named Cecil, who fled the scene. Saw VI later showed that another drug addict, Amanda Young, had been with Cecil on the night that he unwittingly caused Gideon's death, unbeknownst to John or Jill. Grieving the loss of his child, John distanced himself from his friends and wife. John and Jill eventually drifted apart and divorced. John found himself trapped by his own complacency until he was diagnosed with inoperable cancer. Extremely bitter over his squandered life and the loss of his unborn son, he began observing the lives of others and became even more depressed as he saw them squandering the gift of life that he had just been denied. He approached an insurance executive named William Easton, asking for coverage for an experimental cancer treatment, but was denied. Flashbacks from Saw to show that, after surviving a suicide attempt where he drove his car off a cliff, John was reborn and nurtured the idea that the only way for someone to change is for them to change themselves. Then, in Saw for Flashbacks, he designed the first trap and test for Cecil, and decided to use the rest of his existence to design more of these tests or games as a form of instant rehabilitation that would change the world one person at a time. John was soon given the nickname the Jig-Saw Killer or Jigsaw because he removed a puzzle piece, shaped chunk of flesh from those who did not escape his traps. John stated that this name was given to him by the media, and that the cut piece of flesh represented that the victims were missing what he called the survival instinct. Few of John's victims can survive his brutal mechanical traps, which are often ironically symbolic representations of problems in the victim's life and require them to undergo severe physical and/or psychological torture to escape. Jigsaw depicts one of John's very first games, which never became public. The only survivor is Logan Nelson, the man who accidentally mislabeled John's X-rays, causing his cancer to go undiagnosed until it was too late. Believing Logan should not die over an honest mistake, John saves him before he is killed by one of the traps and recruits him as his first apprentice. Logan helps John build several traps for future games, but for unknown reasons seemed to part ways with John by the events of Saw VI, since he was not mentioned in John's will or seen in any capacity. In Saw V, Police Lieutenant Mark Hoffman's ties with John are revealed in a series of flashbacks. During John's first years of activity, Hoffman's sister was murdered by her boyfriend, Seth Baxter. Seth is sentenced to life imprisonment. However, a technicality allows him to go free after only 5 years. Hoffman then kills him in an inescapable trap designed to resemble a jigsaw trap. Everyone then believes that Jigsaw was behind the killing. John then kidnaps Hoffman and blackmails him into becoming his apprentice in his rehabilitation methods. Though initially forced to help, Hoffman later becomes a willing apprentice and helps set up most of John's tests. After beating her test, Amanda Young becomes the first publicly known survivor of a Jigsaw game. She comes to see John as a hero who changed her life for the better, and, on John's request, becomes his protege and next apprentice. John shows her rehabilitation to Jill, who becomes aware of his traps and becomes somewhat of an accomplice as well. In Saw, John chains the man who diagnosed his cancer, Dr. Lawrence Gordon, in a dilapidated industrial washroom with Adam Stanheight, a photographer who has been tailing the doctor, believing he is cheating on his wife. Lawrence has instructions to kill Adam by 6 o'clock or his wife and daughter will be killed. Flashbacks show detectives David Tapp and Stephen Singh, who suspect Lawrence of being Jigsaw, following a trail of clues from other Jigsaw traps. Steven's death from a shotgun trap after saving a victim causes David to obsess over catching Jig-Saw. Later, he chases ZEP Hindle, who monitors Adam and Lawrence's tests, and is shot in the chest. Eventually, Lawrence saws off his own foot to escape, leaving Adam in the bathroom, while Lawrence tries to save his family and get help for Adam. It is later seen in Saw 3D that Lawrence found a steaming hot pipe and cauterized his wound, stopping the bleeding and ultimately surviving the trap. John catches up with Lawrence and makes him his next apprentice, a fact he hides from his other accomplices. Flashbacks from Saw 3 show that Amanda kidnapped Adam and later returned to suffocate him as an act of mercy killing. Central actors of the series. From top left to bottom right, Tobin Bell, Shawnee Smith, Carrie Elves, Costas Mandylor, Danny Glover, and Betsy Russell. Saw X takes place between the events of Saw and Saw 2 and sees John traveling to Mexico in hopes that a Norwegian cancer treatment will cure him. However, when the operation is proven to be a scam, John, with the help of Amanda and Hoffman, kidnaps those responsible and subjects them to his traps, ultimately ending with everyone's death. Saw 2 begins with the police tracking a severely weakened John to his lair. However, another test is in place, as he and Amanda have kidnapped the son of Detective Eric Matthews and trapped him and a group of 7 convicts previously framed by Eric in a house that is slowly being filled with sarin gas, with Amanda among them. He will trade Daniel Matthews' life for Eric's time, conversing with him until the game is concluded. Eric loses his patience and assaults John, forcing him to take him to the house, only to discover that the video feed from inside the house had been pre-recorded. The events in it actually took place much earlier. Eric's son was locked in a safe in John's warehouse and kept alive with an oxygen tank. Eric is knocked unconscious by a masked figure and wakes up imprisoned in the bathroom from Saw, which is part of the house's foundation. Amanda reveals herself to Eric as John's protege before leaving him to die. In a flashback from Saw 3, Eric manages to escape the bathroom by breaking his foot. He confronts and beats Amanda, demanding to know where his son is. Amanda fights him off and leaves him for dead. A flashback from Saw 4 shows Hoffman later dragging Eric to a prison cell, keeping him alive for a future game. The events of Saw 3 and Saw the 4th occur concurrently. Saw 3 begins with John, weakened and near death, confined to a makeshift hospital bed. Amanda has taken over his work, designing traps of her own. However, these traps are inescapable, as Amanda is convinced that John's traps have no effect and that people don't change. A kidnapped doctor is forced to keep John alive while another test is performed on Jeff Denlin, a man obsessed with vengeance against the drunk driver who killed his son. John, unwilling to allow a murderer to continue his legacy, designs a test for Amanda as well. She ultimately fails, resulting in the deaths of herself, John, Lynn, and Jeff. Saw the 4th, meanwhile, revolves around tests meant for Officer Daniel Rigg, which are overseen by Hoffman, who masquerades as a participant in the game. Rigg fails his test, resulting in the death of Eric Matthews. Rigg is left to bleed to death by Hoffman, who later discovers the bodies of John and Amanda. When an autopsy is performed on John, a cassette tape coated in wax is found in his stomach. The tape informs Hoffman that he is wrong to think that it is all over just because John is dead, and he should not expect to go untested. The events of Saw V show Hoffman's first solo test. 5 people connected to a disastrous fire that killed several others are put into 4 interconnected tests of teamwork, killing off 1 person in each trap. The 2 remaining test subjects realize at the final trap that each previous trap was meant to be completed by each of the 5 people doing a small part, rather than killing 1 person per trap. With this knowledge, they work together and barely manage to escape. They are found alive by Special Agent Dan Erickson. Meanwhile, Hoffman has set up FBI agent Peter Strom to appear to be Jigsaw's accomplice, while Strom pursues Hoffman and is eventually killed due to his inability to follow Hoffman's rules, leaving Hoffman free to continue Jigsaw's work. Saw VI begins with Hoffman setting up a game as per John's instructions left in a box for Jill during Saw V. This game centers on health insurance executive William Easton, who oversees a team responsible for rejecting 2/3 of all insurance claims. As William progresses through for tests, he saves as many people as he can, and learns the error of his ways, which inherently kill the rejected. His last test is a test of forgiveness by the family of Harold Abbott, whom William refused a claim. Harold's son ultimately chooses to kill William with hydrofluoric acid. Meanwhile, Agent Erickson and the previously thought dead Agent Lindsay Perez search for Agent Strom with Hoffman's assistance. Finding irregularities in previous murder scenes, Perez and Erickson discover Hoffman's identity, but he kills them before they can go public with it. Hoffman travels back to the site of Easton's tests, where Jill attacks him to obey John's final request. She leaves him in a new trap John has left behind and does not leave a key for him to free himself. He is able to manipulate the trap and escapes wounded. Saw 3D picks up with Jill and Hoffman battling for control of John's legacy, as Jill enters protective custody and makes Hoffman's identity public. Hoffman sets up a new game involving skinheads to find a way to Jill. Meanwhile, Bobby Daggett, a fraud who has written a book about escaping a jigsaw trap he never experienced, is captured and forced to confront people who knew that he lied about being in a trap. 3 of Bobby's friends die, and his test concludes with him being forced to reenact the trap he claimed to have escaped. He fails, causing the death of his wife. Meanwhile, Hoffman has posed as a corpse and killed several officers to infiltrate the police station. He finds and kills Jill using the reverse bear trap. Hoffman attempts to leave town, but is captured by Dr. Lawrence Gordon and his accomplices, then placed in the bathroom from the first film. John is revealed to have saved Lawrence after his game, and, in return, Lawrence helped him with subsequent traps. Lawrence leaves Hoffman shackled in the bathroom to die. The present-day portion of Jigsaw takes place roughly 10 years after John's death in Saw 3. When a new Jigsaw game leaves several people dead, the police come to believe that either John has been resurrected or a Jigsaw copycat is involved. It is eventually revealed that Logan Nelson is the new Jigsaw killer, and that he recreated the game he was once part of using new victims. At the end of the film, Logan abducts corrupt detective Brad Halloran and kills him as revenge for him being indirectly responsible for the death of Logan's wife. Having successfully framed Halloran as the killer, Logan escapes and is free to continue Jigsaw's work. Spiral takes place an unknown amount of time after John's death, as another Jigsaw copycat creates their own games to punish corrupt police officers and detectives. The case is investigated by Detective Zeke Banks, who eventually discovers that his new partner, Detective William Schenk, is the killer. Schenk kidnaps Banks' father Marcus, who is largely responsible for the corruption in the police department, and reveals that his own father was killed by a dirty cop and that he hopes to recruit Banks as a partner in cleansing the department of corruption. Banks is then forced to choose between killing Schenk or saving his father. He manages to rescue Marcus, but Schenk calls a SWAT team and makes it appear that Marcus is the aggressor and is holding a gun. Schenk then escapes as the SWAT team restrains Banks and shoots Marcus to death.